are here to kind of put a cap, an end cap on everything that you've seen and learned at this conference. And there's been so much new information. Anybody say co-pilot? Co-pilot, that's right. But there's so much more than that, right? There's so many new capabilities and features across Power Platform, Microsoft 365, the entire ecosystem, and new capabilities coming from our partners every day. So Dan and I are going to go through that with you and just give you some key things that we want you to have as takeaways as you exit this conference and go back to your jobs. Again, we're so happy that you have come here and had such a good time and also really participated. One thing I want to remind you, while you're sitting here and right after, please make sure to fill out your session evaluations and the evaluation of this conference. We read it all. We read all of it. If there's content that we missed, if there's experiences that you'd like us to deliver, we will share that with the conference organizers. We take that feedback as Microsoft, and we'll make sure to continue to improve this experience. I, for one, am super happy that we're back. So it's great to be here in person with all of you.
Yeah, it's been amazing for me too. Even during the pandemic, we had this event 2 or 3 times, and it's just been fantastic to get this many people together, feeling comfortable enough with each other to sit in the same room and breathe the same air and party the same party. It's been really fantastic. And the quality and quantity of your input and feedback has been absolutely mind-blowing. We're incredibly grateful as the product teams to hear from you. You keep us honest. You help give us direction as to what we need to do next. And you celebrate the things that we've done right. And that is what is a phenomenal opportunity for us as product team members. And as someone on the product team, if we can switch the video, actually, I want to actually do something really quick because, as many of you know, my product is Viva Engage. So nothing's real without a storyline post. So I'm gonna create a quick storyline post here. Let me paste in some text, and I'm going to add a little video of. I'm going to put Karuana on the spot here and say and have you say something that I'll then pan over to the crowd and
okay, that's great.
And do something. So you are on.
Microsoft 365 conference. Wow, what an amazing set of content, people, and fun. Check it out.
Cheer, everybody. Oh, now that is the best story I've ever created. Too bad I'm doing it as Megan Bowen right now. I'm going to have to steal it.
You're going to
steal it from Contoso.
I can't believe at this point in the conference I figured out what to say, too. That was kind of it. That was amazing.
So I'm going to go ahead and post this up to my storyline, and we'll see how that comes in just a moment as well. So should we start diving in? All right. So I thought one of the things we were considering as we prepare for this closing keynote, we try to reflect the themes and the topics that we've all been discussing for the last 3 days. And certainly, one of the things that we heard a lot is that there's some exciting new stuff coming out, and you want to find the most effective ways to drive adoption of those new capabilities within your organization and really drive, in the end, successful business outcomes with what you've seen here today. So I thought I'd give a quick set of thoughts, and then I'd like to, since many of you here are technical, I thought I'd like to show you how you could actually support the adoption and success of everything you've learned here using the tools you've learned about here. And by the way, just to set it out in case I don't mention it later, I'll be showing you a bunch of things and how they fit together. All of them are part of your E3 and E5 licensing, so nothing I'm showing you requires additional add-ons. Yeah. I heard from a lot of folks, I'm so confused, what can I actually do before I do an add-on? So we'll see that. Before you get to technology, though, you really do need to make sure you have alignment and intention about what you're trying to achieve. As one of the things I've seen in my career with customers that is a predictor of failure is we want to roll out this tool and drive usage of it, and that's the end of the story. That is not ever a successful strategy. You need to understand and make sure you identify what the outcomes are you're actually trying to drive for the business and for your users. And when you have tools as complex and powerful as the ones you've been learning about this week, I think it's important to pick a subset of capabilities that tool is capable of that will align with the most important business priorities you have in your organization. In other words, don't try to roll out everything a tool can do all at once. Identify the outcomes, and decide which subset of those tools' capabilities can really drive those outcomes, and focus on deploying a scenario by scenario or capability by capability basis as opposed to a tool by tool basis. So align on the outcomes and get all the right stakeholders together. This is Adoption 101. You need your executive sponsorship so that you have the air cover you need to be successful. You need stakeholders across the business who really are defining the outcomes and measuring them, as well as IT. And then you need to make sure you're ready to drive your pilot or initial programs. And we'll be talking a lot in this closing keynote about champions and the importance of having champions in an organization. But I'd like to add a little bit of nuance to that conversation, which is I think you need to identify two types of people who can unlock success during your early pilots, testing, and proofs of concept, and even early adoption stages. The first are what we call activators. And I'm going to share a story with you about Storyline, which you just saw me post to, usage in our customers. What we found as we were researching and trying to help our customers be successful with Storyline, even internally inside of Microsoft, is that there are certain people who naturally gravitate to a technological feature because they immediately recognize it and say, oh, that's something I can see would solve a problem for me. Or that's something very similar to what I've used in my consumer world. I can leverage that tool right away. I know how I should use that. They don't need to be sold the tool. They don't need to really have as long of a runway to their own success. They immediately resonate with the potential capability that you're trying to deploy. And when those activators are more visible, when those people are more visible, they become activators to the rest of the organization. So I'll give you a couple of examples of activators that we found along our way with Storyline. First, we found leaders who understood the ability of Storyline to reach a broad part of the organization. Jeff Teeper was one of them. And as I shared very briefly on yesterday morning's keynote, every Friday, Jeff Teeper sends out a 5-minute video update that keeps his organization up to date with what's top of mind, with what decisions were being made, amplifies cultural moments. And he immediately recognized that this social-like tool could help him achieve that in a very personal and authentic way. And as all of you saw at this event, Jeff is a very personable and authentic individual. And so he was both an executive sponsor in a way, but also really more of an activator, because as he started to use the tool, other leaders at Microsoft started to see how successful he was at it and started to take action themselves. So he was the beginning of the snowball. And then we had, on the other end of the spectrum, we had an individual inside of Microsoft named Steve Starr. And Steve runs the company store. So he runs the store through which Microsoft employees can buy Microsoft swag and Microsoft hardware and all that sort of stuff. And he realized he could use Storyline to announce product availability. And this was the time when the new Xbox was coming out, and everyone was asking him all the time, like, when can we get our hands on it? And so he started using Storyline to share product updates and to get people excited about products. And even though he wasn't a leader at Microsoft per se, he was able to amass 50,000 followers inside of Microsoft who were really keen on knowing when the latest products were available and how they could get their hands on them. So we found these activators. Another one was Adam Harmetz, who might even be in the room here, who uses consumer social media very well to share thought leadership about what it means to be a product manager and even what it means to be in technology and a parent. And he immediately adopted. So we found these activators, and finding those individuals is really key because then they can model the right usage. They are a little bit more forgiving of early let's call them friction, little bugs, things that need to be changed because they know where the effort is going. And they are able to then start providing internal case studies for other individuals and stakeholders in the organization for how to expand the use of that feature. So think about activators as a key element of your adoption strategy. And then you have your champions. And your champions are the ones who are really willing to go out and drive adoption and help people understand the technology and model it and evangelize it and all that kind of stuff. And sometimes your activators will be part of your champions program, but not always. So do think about those as separate entities. And if you can get all of your stakeholders, your activators, your champions aligned around the outcomes, what you're trying to really achieve, not just deploy a technology, then you're going to have the intention you need to be successful. There's nothing more powerful than human intention. And when people have the intention to be successful, and particularly when you're not just one person with intention, but a group of people with intention, you've got a lot of power in your hands. Now, with that sort of philosophical note, let's talk about how you can turn these capabilities into a platform inside your organization to drive deployment and adoption of capabilities regardless of what they are. And this will involve, number one, getting sponsorship. We just talked a little bit about that. Creating a platform to manage your champions and the deployment efforts you're driving. And then creating a community that really reaches and engages the entire organization. So I'm going to take you through a couple of steps, and we'll make this slide available for you. If you want to take a picture of it really quick, you can, but I promise I'll tweet this out as soon as I'm done with this. I'm going to take you through these steps of how you can support adoption and success using the very tools that you've learned about here. And I'm going to focus particularly on Teams and Viva Engage, and we'll also talk about SharePoint's role in this, since those are three of the main pillars of this event here. And I think this will also help you see how these tools start to come together to achieve a business objective. In this case, the business objective is supporting adoption of a new capability, but this could apply to any business objective. It might be increasing diversity, it might be improving employee retention, improving quality, customer responsiveness. You'll start to see how all of the things you've learned about here come together. So we're going to start with the deployment step. So let me get into the right browser here, because there is one deployment step that you'll need to do. Of course, you probably knew, even when you came into this event, that Teams is one of the great hubs for work. I had several conversations with customers about single pane of glass. How do you give users a single place to go where everything they need lights up and becomes available, whether it's a Microsoft tool, a third-party tool, or a custom tool? Teams is that. And in Teams, those capabilities light up through apps. One of the apps that we're going to use here right now to achieve our goal of driving adoption and success is Viva Engage. And that tool is not available by default inside of Microsoft Teams. Some Microsoft tools are immediately integrated into Teams, like SharePoint and OneDrive for files, Stream for video. Viva Engage you need to install. So from the Teams Admin Center, you can add that app. And then you can even choose to pin it and decide where in the left navigation it will go. And then you can do this as part of what's called a setup policy. I'm changing the global policy so everyone in the organization will now have Viva Engage along with their other Teams apps. One other thing I'd like to call out here while we're on this page, because it's relatively new and some of you may not know we added it, is the ability to allow user pinning. This is a pretty useful setting, because in the early days of the Teams Admin Center, when you deployed an app and you pinned it, you wiped out all the things the user had already pinned. And this switch fixes that. This switch will allow you to pin that app without without removing all of the other apps that user has pinned. So we deploy the app. It's that simple. We add it, we pin it, and probably, in many cases, allow users to continue to pin things on their own. And with that, within a couple of hours, that Viva Engage app will start to be available across your user base. So if I go over here into Megan's, Teams, she has that Viva Engage app ready to use. So that's step number one. Now I'm going to bounce back and forth to my slide to make sure I'm covering them in the order I want. Yes. Okay, step number two, and I'm going to go ahead and go full screen now for a while. What happened? Oh, you're seeing the storyline. That's perfect. See how effective that is? That's great. All right. We might as well take a look, huh? Oh, you are on.
Microsoft 365 Conference, wow. What an amazing set of content, people, and fun. Check it out.
Cheer, everybody. So there you all are. You're famous now. I'm going to download that and post it to my real storyline inside of Microsoft right after this.
You're going to take that down, right, Dan? You're going to take that down, right?
So one of the things that Viva Engage does is it connects the entire organization so you can discover stuff that might be interesting or valuable to you. So I had posted that as me to Contoso. We're now on as Megan, and she happens to discover this post in her feed. She feels more connected and aware of what's going on in the organization. That's great. But the next big step I want to talk to you about is implementing your champions program. Now, first we're going to talk about the people who are actually the champions, the people evangelizing, driving adoption. They need to understand the goals and outcomes that are being driven, connected to the measurements of success, and given the tools they need to be effective champions. And Karuana will talk more about this soon. But you can allow those people, that group of people, to come together and collaborate in a team. So in this tenant, we have a Future of Work Champions team, and in that, there are some channels. Now, this team was created in literally about 3 minutes. In teams, when you create a new team, we now have templates. One of the templates is adoption. I applied that template. It gave us the channels we needed. And then I pulled down the champion management program solution and added it as an app to this particular team. And that solution here appears here in this tab, allowing us to really manage badging and events and all the sort of stuff that we can use to keep the champions effective and on track. And one of the key things I wanted to illustrate with this moment is that teams are uniquely powerful ways to bring people together to drive a common objective and a common set of work deliverables. Teams and the channels within teams are the most effective ways for people to collaborate. They have the apps, they have the files, they have the conversation, they have the data. Teams 101, I know, but it's a key reminder here. And so we're bringing that group of people together to do the work of being champions. Now, the next step is going to be to allow those people to drive change across the organization at scale. You might have a couple dozen champions, a couple hundred, a couple thousand, a couple tens of thousands of employees. We need to give them a way to really drive adoption in the organization. And to connect people at scale, we'll use a community in Viva Engage to really bring people together across teams, across business silos, across the organization, around the common objective of understanding how to work more effectively in this organization. So we've created a community called Future of Work. And this community is available to anyone in the organization. And one of the nice things about communities is that they are open by default. You do not have to actually join them to benefit from them. So anything that happens in the community potentially can reach anyone in the organization. If someone has a particular interest in what's going on in that community, they can join it, which will prioritize the content that's coming from that community and make it more visible to that individual who is a member of the community. But importantly, you don't have to be a member of the community to benefit from it. So the community is here for everyone in the org. It's set up as Future of Work. And here we can bring people together to share tips and tricks about how to use how to achieve the capability more effectively with the technologies we have at hand. We can answer questions and bring in experts to answer those questions. And we can share news and information. So let's talk about each of those scenarios. First, let's take asking questions as a key. Asking questions is a key superpower of a community. And when you ask a question, so let's ask a question like, when can, whoops, got my keyboard going here. When can we expect Copilot in Microsoft 365? That question can be asked. In this case, it's being asked by Megan. And then other users have the ability to just join in and contribute to that conversation. So I'll jump over to my instance here. Let me again go full screen. So now I'm logged in, and I can, and that conversation can surface to me in several ways. I can go to the community to see that question, or because I already belong to that community, activity in that community is promoted to me. It's more relevant to me in the home feed. So I'm able to see this question, and I'm able to answer it. So in this case, I'll just do a really quick answer, later in 2023, and click post. Now, those answers can then be crowdsourced across multiple people in the organization. So here we are back as Megan here. She has the ability to see this particular answer. There might be other answers happening as well. And because she asked the question, or an administrator of the community can mark this as a best answer. So it pins that answer to the top of the thread, captures that knowledge as a good answer for the future. And so the next person who comes in who might have a question is going to be able to see that and see what the answers were. And when there are multiple answers, those answers can be voted up and down, because sometimes there are more than one good answer for a question. So asking questions is a superpower of communities, capturing that knowledge and really preserving it for the future. Another is sharing news and information. So I'm going to, again, jump back to my world, and let's jump to a different app. Actually, I'm going to get out of full screen. And so I'm going now putting on my role as a champion for adoption of these capabilities. I've come across a great article about how Microsoft IT deployed Viva inside of Microsoft. It talks about the ups and downs, the considerations, the ins and outs. So this is a really cool article. I want to share this within my organization. So I'm going to go ahead and copy this. Whoops. Copy this URL, pop into Viva Engage. I'm going to go ahead and jump into the community to share this, and go ahead and post this as a discussion. There's a nice preview, obviously. I can add some text at the beginning to give some perspective. Please check out this interesting article about how Microsoft itself deployed Viva and drove adoption. So I can go ahead and post this. Now, if I really want this to reach the people who are interested in this topic, I can make it an announcement. An announcement in the community will go to people who are members of the community in Teams and in Outlook, so they are able to get the information without even having to remember to visit the community. So I would go ahead and click post here. Just as a note, I created this post just before the, well, actually, no, I will go ahead and post this. I created this post just before to make sure everything was going to work for my demos, but this is now posted as an announcement. And again, one of the great things about leveraging Microsoft 365 is that these tools are integrated. Things that happen in a team can show up elsewhere. Things that happen in a community definitely can show up inside of not only Viva Engage, Viva Connections, but also Outlook and Teams. So we're going to jump back to Megan now. Switch out of full screen. And for Megan, we're going to take a quick look over here at Outlook. And we can see that Megan received that announcement. Whoops, let's see. This is the one I did before. I'll go ahead and look at this. Megan received this announcement in Outlook. It renders beautifully. She's able to engage with it. She's able to add her comments. Let's see, she'll say, I saw the keynote from the Microsoft 365 conference about this topic. Keith was really interesting. So she can do all this engagement straight from the app that she chooses to work in, whether it's Outlook or Teams. She can see that. We've just seen it in Outlook. If she's working in Teams, she'll see the announcement right here in the Teams activity feed as well. And then finally, we have the ability to start organizing the content within this community, because if it's an adoption community, for example, it's highly likely that over time it will get quite busy. So let me show you that piece of it. Jump back in here again. So I'll actually start the post again just to make this a little bit of a cleaner demo. Whoops, no. One of the things that Viva Engage has the ability to do, and I don't have my glasses on, so excuse me for just a second here. I'm having fun with this one. One of the things that Viva Engage allows you to do in communities is to add topics. And topics organize posts. They create a kind of a channel within a community. So if there's specific sub-conversations you want to have, you can ground people in those, you can allow them to see those. And topics also do integrate with Viva Topics once you are using Viva Topics. So I'm going to add some topics to this post, I'll add the product. So let's say this is about Microsoft Viva. And if we don't have that topic already, I can create it as a topic. I'm going to add a topic about the scenario this is related to, which is adoption. Oops, I must have typed that wrong. And then also, oops, one more I'm going to do. Let's get rid of that. The technology, the scenario, and then perhaps the group that would be interested in this, like employee communications. Now, the main reason I'm doing this is because tagging conversations allow those conversations to be pivoted in different ways, which will be important for one of our next steps here. So Viva Engage does allow you to categorize those conversations. So at this point, we've deployed the app so everyone in the organization can be connected and part of this effort to drive adoption. We've created a team for the champions themselves. We've created a community for those champions to share information with the organization, to answer questions, and for everyone in the organization to come together and share in that experience themselves. And finally, we're going to add the community to the champions channel. And this is one of those steps that really sort of lights up how valuable the integrations are across our suite. So back as Megan. In the Teams Champion channel, so again, this is the team and the channel where the champions do their work, we're going to go ahead and add that community. So we're going to bring that community that we've just created, which is called Future of Work. As a tab to the channel itself, so that that team that is working together and driving adoption can, at their fingertips, have an entry point into the community that they're actually supporting. So you can see here how Teams in Microsoft 365 provides this amazing collaborative space for a group of people to get their work done, and the community that allows them to reach the rest of the organization is part of what that team has at their fingertips. And this is the kind of thing that as we talk with customers who are thinking about how to simplify their digital estate, reduce costs, and increase the seamlessness of the capabilities they're deploying, this is a really key one. So I've shown you most of what is on this slide. I'll talk through the last ones, and then I want to turn it back to Karuana. We've added the Community to the Champions channel. We've shared adoption news as announcements. You can also share news and information through the all-company community. It's there by default, and that will reach everyone in the organization. I suggest running a tips and tricks campaign using a hashtag when you're driving a new capability. Get people to share their own experiences with the technology you're deploying. And last but not least, you can build a SharePoint site to curate the information together, the resources that people need for a deeper understanding of the technology you're deploying. So hopefully this gave you a little bit of a picture of how you can take the tools you've learned about here at the conference and actually integrate them and deploy them to your organization to actually help them better be successful with the technology. Thank you so much, and let me bring Karuana on to continue our journey.
That was fantastic, Dan. I love that. Thank you so much. So that was wonderful, and you're probably wondering, where was Copilot in that? We might be the only people from this stage that didn't demonstrate some Copilot stuff, because there's a reason for that. Look, the fundamentals of skilling and adoption aren't changing. Are we going to have new capabilities with Copilot, with Microsoft 365 Copilot, Copilot in SharePoint to evolve these things? Absolutely. But for us, as well as for all of you, it's pretty new. And we're thinking about what's going to be the best and most effective way to use Copilot to help discover answers to questions, to route people to training content that they may need, to continue to connect people with like interests and like needs. So we'll continue to talk about that and have more to share on that. What I'm going to do right now, however, is talk about, hang on one second, I want to do a little something special here and get right here. There we go. There we go. So we talked about how all of you are going to be of service to everyone that you work with when you go back. And you may not have in your job title driving adoption, but I believe that all of us as IT professionals are a little bit in the business of adoption. We have to help our leaders and our stakeholders understand how to leverage this technology. I'm a business solution architect, so my job is to listen to business people and apply the technology to their problems and solve them. And I think many of you have that role as well. So it's important for you to continue to build your skills. So what I want to talk about is how you can continue after this conference to stay connected and build your skills in this space. Never before, I think Jeff said it best, in the last 30 years of his time at Microsoft, he's never seen so many announcements, and I would agree with that. That means there's so much for us to learn and explore. So one of the things that we talked about earlier was this champion program. We have our own Microsoft 365 champion program. It's run by my team. And the whole purpose of this program is to empower all of you. We serve the champions of champions in many respects. And so we have a lot of people who come to these monthly calls who actually run their own internal group's champion program. And we give them resources, tools, slides that you can take, brand, or change as you choose for your own organization, but use them to train your people. So that's the content flow that you're going to continue to need that would go in the team and in the community that Dan just so wonderfully built and showed. We also have an online forum. Now, there are a host of online communities specific to product, but we run one that is specific to adoption. So maybe you're wondering how best to roll out training in your group or how to reconcile the different training experiences that Microsoft delivers or some other question along those lines. You can come to the Driving Adoption Forum in the tech community and get your question answered. And then there's our in-person connections. I'm happy to announce that we'll be starting champion mixers once again at these sorts of conferences around the world and through our community days events that we'll be having. So you can get together with other people who do this sort of work. The most effective thing that you can ever do is learn from another person who has a similar role to yours, or maybe works at a similar organization as yours. I can tell you all sorts of things from everything I've seen around the globe, but the best thing you can do is meet another champion of champions and talk to them for 15 minutes. We continue to do that through our Champion Spotlight program as well. So if you join our monthly calls, sometimes you'll be seeing us interview one of the champions who has done this work around the world, sharing their experiences, how they overcame challenges. Sometimes the hardest thing to do is to get your stakeholders to actually pay attention and listen. So you can sign up for that at aka.ms/M365 Champions. And we're going to continue to expand this program. We have content for Power Platform. We have content for Dynamics. And one of the things that we're talking about that we'll be able to release before the end of this calendar year is a special set of content for champions around security. Oftentimes when you start talking about security, it very quickly dives into a very deep technical conversation, and that's great. But we believe that there's a set of security practices and protocols that champions need to train their end users on, right? Like what not to click on in the wrong kind of email, how to not get your credentials spoofed, the right way to share a document through your organization, right? So that it's set up so that they can easily share and do collaboration, but do it in safe ways. So we'll be adding that sort of content to our champion calls so that you can take it back to your organization and help people really do the right thing when they are working around the organization and cross-organizationally in particular. So I think we talked a little bit about that, but I always like to show this slide about why champions are important. Many people sometimes don't understand the difference between a deployment and a fully supported rollout. Right? In my view, a deployment is a technical activity. You deploy an app, you configure its policies, you ensure it gets to the person's end device, whatever it may be. But a fully supported rollout actually includes communications, stakeholder alignment, champion enablement, end user training, and training on demand, among other things that you may choose to do. And the real difference is in adoption and success. The real difference between successful rollouts and those that aren't is how much time and effort did anybody spend on communicating with people beyond an email. Okay, an email does not qualify as a rollout campaign. I will say that again. One single email, hey, Teams is available, that's not a campaign. That doesn't help end users actually understand why should they care. You always have to really put yourself in the perspective of the end user so that they understand why this stuff matters to them at all, right? Because you're asking them to take their valuable time and switch attention to something that you're telling them about, right? Why does that matter? One of the things that we built to help champions, and Dan showed it for a moment, is our Champions Management Platform. This solution is free. It is open source. It is extensible. If you take it the way that you download it, it will support your Microsoft 365 adoption campaign. But I have customers around the world who've used additional instances of it for accessibility champions or security champions or diversity and inclusion champions. You can continue to expand upon the idea of champions in your organization. By the way, you don't have to call them champions. Maybe that word doesn't resonate in your culture. You can call them something else, and you can change that in the solution if you want to. This is the AK.MS N365 CMP. That is where you go and get the solution. That's our public-facing page. But again, it's a free capability, and it's part of the supported Teams app templates that my team and I deliver. We also deliver the Emergency Operations Center. We have Icebreaker, Company Communicator. There are multiple templates that are available out there, and whether you use them in production or not, they're great to install to understand how these better together scenarios are supposed to work. And that's one of the reasons that we do it. It is a tenant-wide solution, much like M365 Learning Pathways or others, and it's production ready. We're continually adding additional features to it. We've just upgraded it to version 2, and it gives you the ability to also drive recognition for the people who are doing this work. Continuing along this theme, you can always use our resources to fuel your work. Right? A good deal of everything that we do in our team is ready for reuse. So whether you get the slides from our Champions Management meeting, whether you use our templates and solutions, our pre-configured training playlists that we have in Learning Pathways, you don't have to do this alone, is really the overall point here, right? And you can also use our fast-track teams that will actually help you with the technical deployment component of what you're doing when you're rolling out these services. So if you have more than 150 seats in your organization, Microsoft will give you these fast-track technicians who will help you configure your admin center, configure your policies in many ways, and that is a free service to you that we offer. And many people don't know about that, so you end up struggling through the documentation, but you don't have to. It's not necessary. And if you don't know how to get to those folks, you can always ask that question in that driving adoption community, and we'll make sure to get you to the right place. The last thing that I want to show you, and I want to do this as a little bit of a live demo here, is adoption.microsoft.com. So let me, oh, look at you. I have people. People are here to help. Fantastic. There you go. Yeah.
I don't remember which tab it is.
It's okay. You can just start where you were on the Yammer page. It's fine.
All right.
And I'll start here. Look at that. Thank you, Dan. He's so helpful. Thank you, Dan. Yes. Is he good? It's nice to have someone come on stage and help you. I know a little bit about that. All right. So adoption.microsoft.com is our central location, our adoption center, for resources about all of the different services that exist. And so you can take a look here. If you scroll down, of course, right now we're having a promo on this main page about the new Microsoft Teams. This is a useful page to know. It is the place that you should go if you're thinking about rolling out, which we hope you are, the new Microsoft Teams. It gives you information about how people can opt in your tenant. And this is where we keep updated the list of what is available and what is still being worked on as we are in preview. We also have resources for IT admins and help desks. Hang on a second. There we go. So that you can download these slides and give them to your help desk. We've got links to our technical documentation and more. So, if you're thinking about soon going to the Teams experience, that's the place to go. But we like to organize this content by the different types of roles that exist. So let's say I am a champion or a champion of champions, and I want to know what that's all about. I can come to this page and get resources for building my program, managing it, enabling remote work. There's storytelling for champions. This is an important piece, and we talked about it briefly in one of the other sessions. Yes, do we need to understand the deep technical capabilities of the services that we're delivering? Absolutely. But part of our job is to be storytellers. Part of our job is how you help one executive learn how another executive is using the technology to be successful. Or to show one executive assistant how that person is using it to help support another executive. Right? Sometimes it is in the grassroots conversation and storytelling that happens that success is actually created. So we like to work on teaching these skills. People call them soft skills. I think they're the hardest skills to learn. Especially in this business, but they're absolutely essential to being successful no matter what kind of role you have in IT. So you can always find resources about that here. You'll see that we have resources for a variety of different types of services that are available. Here's our list adoption center. I love lists. Yeah, there you go. There he is. I really, really love lists. And whenever there's something fun going on, like an on-demand virtual workshop, you'll be able to find it here. Lots of great stuff from Mark Cashman and team on lists. We love that. But we also have content for developers and other folks. You can find here the various solutions that I was mentioning. We also have a partner solution gallery of things that have come through kind of our system that we think are really useful to people. And then also, I am going to go here so that you can see our SharePoint lookbook. So this SharePoint lookbook, I have always think is just such a great thing because it allows you to be more inspired about all the different things that can happen in SharePoint. If you haven't checked this out, you absolutely should. I know we're going through an update with this right now with the new amazing capabilities of SharePoint, Copilot in SharePoint. But there's so many great things that happen on adoption.microsoft.com. So give yourself, be happy. Make sure that you take a moment to go through the navigation in adoption.microsoft.com so that you can see all the things that are available. And last but not least is our blog. We do a What's New blog there on a regular basis about what is up and coming in technical skilling events and resources so you can stay up to date with what is happening. So we love that site. We believe that it has value for people, and we're continuing to build on it based on your feedback as well in terms of what else you need. There are training plans there and everything else. But I started this part of the conversation with what you need to do. The number one thing you need to do is to make sure that you are staying connected to the training, the resources, the new features, and the content. And you'll now be able to do that in our new page, Microsoft Community, on LinkedIn. If it's the last thing I do at Microsoft, I will make sure to remove the transitions from my slides before I move them from one deck to another. There's that. But also, this is just going to drive me crazy. Go ahead, take your picture. Take your picture right now before it does it again. Oh, my goodness. Okay. But the goal that I have right now is to have one calendar of all the community calls that happen at Microsoft. People have asked me for that for about 5 years now. I have not been able to deliver, but I will. And it's going to happen on that LinkedIn page for all of you. So I'm really excited about that and making sure that you have what you need to do what I call work at the speed of trust. In any organization, if you don't have trust in the relationship between IT and business, between business and user experience and adoption people, between all of those people and your security folks, your deployments and your adoption will be slowed down in a bog, right? You must be able to build trust and do relationship management with these people. That is really the secret to your success. Maybe you don't know everything there is to know about every policy that has to be set in the admin center. You can look that up. But if the people in your security office don't trust that you understand their perspective, you will not get anything deployed. Right? And this is why these relationships are so important. Building your skills, making sure that you put yourself in that sweet spot between your talents, your ability to make impact, and the fulfillment you get from this work, that is so important as you leave this conference, especially with all of the announcements that we have done. There's no reason in this business for you to not be having fun and enjoying your career and enjoying your job. We all do it for a variety of reasons, right? I support my family, I take care of my mom, I enjoy what I do. But there's also that personal fulfillment that we get when we do good work and when we help others. And so you can expand your impact if you really focus on going back and thinking about who should you have a virtual coffee with? Who should you share your enthusiasm from this conference with when you go back to your office? Who would you like to bring with you next time? Maybe when T&E is a little more flexible, right? How can you take this experience and share it with others? Because that way of bringing people in will help you with whatever goals you happen to have at any given time. These are the skills that are required to drive adoption. You have to be able to answer the why, who, what, when, understand what your message is, and be determined, right? In our corporate speak, we rephrase that as these skills and capabilities. Being able to optimize in your organization. We now commonly refer to that as do more with less. You have to have business acumen and understand what are the actual objectives of your C-suite or your own company, if it happens to be you. Of course, you need technical competence. You must understand the solutions and the services and the capabilities that they offer. But you also have to manage a portfolio. You can't get everything done at the same time. So what is the most important project you can work on right now? How are you going to make that recommendation to your stakeholders when you go back? And yes, I've added 2 more on here that folks don't often see in an IT or tech conference: marketing and communications. If you cannot effectively storytell or communicate with your end users or your stakeholders, all the things that came before that won't be helpful. You have to be able to communicate in an effective way. And the last is that leadership capability. Some people call it the X factor, but you must be determined to get to the future of work. You must be determined to improve the lives of your employees with a better employee experience. You must be determined to expand your skills and capabilities in your career, right? And that is that leadership capability that you develop by being here with us right now. If you'd like to make sure that you can validate you have those capabilities, you can go and take this course, the adoption course on Microsoft Learn, AK.MS adoption course. You will then become a Microsoft badged service adoption specialist. Happy to announce that we're going to be adding intermediate and advanced content to this course. This is the original introductory course. A little thing called COVID got in the way of me writing more content, but now we're ready to launch some additional courses here. And we'll do things like include updated governance guidance, updated guidance around how you should be measuring success, and new best practices around new services like Microsoft Viva and Loop and others. So I want to also note that this content is not just authored by people at Microsoft. Even the original course content was vetted with other subject matter experts from outside the company. I think that's really important that it's not just the Microsoft perspective for this, and we'll have more people involved in that as we go forward. So make sure you go and get that badge. One of the things that we teach in that course, and we'll be doing a workshop on this. This will be announced on our Microsoft Community LinkedIn page, is we'll be doing a workshop on how you actually structure business scenarios. The business scenario and gathering the requirements for those scenarios, especially in the era of Copilot, is extremely important. Being able to get those business people around a table and have them share with you what types of improvements that they need in their business area so that you can then step away and look at the technology stack and see what really works. Sometimes it's not about deploying something new. Sometimes it's just about having them use what you already have. Many times when you're talking about sharing information, you don't need something new. You need them to effectively use Viva Engage or a SharePoint site or a team or even an email newsletter or something like Viva Amplify, right? So you don't always need something new. Sometimes the thing you need to do is deploy in a better way and drive the adoption of something you already have. So if you're starting to feel stressed about the fact that Microsoft keeps rolling out new premium features or premium licenses, just take a breath and pause and do a little bit of a portfolio of these priority business scenarios and see what you can improve right now, today, with what you have. You know, I've never met a customer in this space in the last 25 years that couldn't do more with what they'd already paid for. Right? And this is the thing that makes me really happy, is getting people to use what they've already invested in. It's really important. And so this workshop, we feel like, will help you build those skills. No matter what your role may be, being able to map these business scenarios will be really important to you going forward. Many of these things we're going to do as free online seminars, but also we're really putting a lot of effort. This thing's going to kill me. I'm just going to do this right here. Man, that's the end of the day. Yes, it is. There we go. Reading view. No transitions. So, community days. Oh, bam. Karuana, fail. Big time. Wait, thank you so much. It's the transition. So communitydays.org is where you can find free training, local training events in your area, right? For anybody here ever been to a SharePoint Saturday? Yes, SharePoint Saturdays, there we go. Community Days are the new iterations of SharePoint Saturdays that cover all of Microsoft services. And they could cover Microsoft 365, or there could be a Power Platform Community Day. If they do both, they're called Microsoft Community Days, but they're free. And they're local to you. And we are infusing our support throughout the world to have more of these start. And where you'll be able to find them is on communitydays.org. We're also helping to restart the local user groups. Like, that's where I got my start. I'm on this stage because I participated in the Los Angeles user group. And I went and I learned, and when I learned a few things and I got up to talk, because I'm a bit chatty, in case you hadn't noticed, and then I began to do more work in the community. So these local user groups are really important to continuing to build your skills. So visit communitydays.org, and what we'll do... That's where you and I met. That is where you and I met, absolutely. And so all this stuff was like, oh my gosh, Microsoft, you're driving me crazy. There's too much information. We have something for that, of course, which would be our next slide. Thank you, sir. Mondays at Microsoft. Mondays at Microsoft will be broadcast live on that Microsoft Communities LinkedIn page. Heather Cook and I will have this show every other Monday, premiering on May 15th. And it's just a real quick 25-minute conversation about what's happening in the next 2 weeks around features, around releases, around events, and we'll take some questions. 8 a.m. Pacific time every other Monday, just to kind of keep you aligned with what's going on, because we are shotgunning stuff out faster than I've ever seen. And so we felt like now is a good time to just try to condense it for you. And this LinkedIn page will also, again, as I said, have the list of all the other community calls where you can go deeper. Like if you're a Power Platform person, you can go deeper with those skills and capabilities in that community call. But you can come to this, kind of get the lay of the land for the next 2 weeks, and then we'll keep going together. But if you haven't noticed, the main thing here is stay close, stay connected. We're here to help you. We enjoy it. Ask us questions. We'll find you answers. Use what you have while you figure out how to use all the new amazing things we are bringing to you. And keep your feedback coming. You are helping us craft the future of the new era of work and all of the low-code and no-code automations that are happening and all of the innovations even in Azure and in the DevOps scenarios. It's coming from all of you. Right? There's amazing creative people at Microsoft all around the world, but the real creation and creative energy comes from our base of customers and all of you who are influencers in this space. It is absolutely our privilege to be able to work with you on these things.